my soccer universe. The 24-25 Nations League ends with Portugal winning it for the second time, the first team to ever do so. They won the first edition, they also win now the fourth edition, beating out Spain, who have been in 3 consecutive finals. Also, pretty good record right there, but I felt that Portugal won deservedly so in a really entertaining final. Also, somewhat entertaining was the third place matchup, full stadium in Stuttgart, something that you have not seen so far in third place matches in the Nations League. But I guess if you go to Germany, you will get huge crowds, as the Germans are really up for that. That Germany only finished in fourth place is probably a little bit of a letdown, and it continues a trend that the hosts of this Final Fours are actually getting progressively worse. We had Portugal winning it, then Italy finishing in third place, and then Netherlands and Germany also only finishing in fourth. But to be honest, the 3 nations that are in 1, 2, 3 are just a step above Germany and probably the rest of the European teams. This is the creme de la creme. All of them really great, and especially for Portugal, I have to say, this is a team that seemingly has found itself. If they can conserve this form into the World Cup, I think they're true contenders in there. And I will probably mention this a lot during this video, with a Cristiano Ronaldo who actually works for the team. He is not the guy, give me the ball, and really complaining about it. No, he was working for the team. Is he great in closing down opponents? Maybe not, but then you have the threat of his, where he just pops up again in the box and scores an important goal for Portugal. And if this can continue, I can very well see him going to the United States as a supporting team player. Portugal can manage that with all the talent that they have. I think they might be contenders, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just recap the 2 games that happened yesterday. France snatched third place in the 24-25 Nations League campaign from Germany, beating them in Stuttgart 2-0. However, it felt that this result was, at least when you look at the first half and the beginning of the second half, very much against the run of play, because Germany should have scored, had plenty of good chances, especially by Adeyemi, but he never placed the ball very well. He also thought he had earned a penalty. However, it turned out to be a dive. He was duly yellow carded for that by referee Kruzliak. And then in the 45th minute, Mbappé puts it into the net, and I think Ter Stegen also would like to have that one back. So a bit against the run of play, France up 1-0. However, Germany, not to be deterred, pushed a little bit more in the second half as well, and thought they had gotten an equalizer through Dennis Undav, who had come on for Woltemade. However, in the build-up there was a foul, and so the goal did not count. Germans, of course, not happy. Stuttgart is not bringing them luck. Remember the quarterfinal last year. And then, as Germany were pushing, the spaces opened up at the back, and that allowed, of course, France to pounce on one of those counterattacks. Mbappé sets up Olise to tap it into the empty net in the 84th minute. Portugal dethroned the Iberian neighbours Spain as Nations League champions, beating them on penalties. However, if I look at it over the entire 120 minutes, I really thought that Portugal deserved this win over Spain. It was also a win of depth in the squad, which, curiously enough, Spain actually didn't have. The game started out with Portugal actually controlling Spain quite well, especially Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams. Yamal, through the entire game, couldn't really live up to Nuno Mendes and was much more a subdued presence than he was an attacking one. And so the game kind of ebbed and flowed, but you could see that Spain can be really, really dangerous, and no more than when Zubimendi gets the ball in midfield, runs onto the net, then Lamine Yamal with one of a few crosses in, it is poorly cleared and it falls again to Zubimendi to tap it home in the 21st minute. And with Spain ahead, you really thought maybe they will see this just out. However, the man of the match, Nuno Mendes, then himself equalizes, taking a great run and just firing a shot into the lower far corner. Nuno Mendes, 26 minutes, scores levels, and again the game ebbed and flowed. However, I again felt that Spain are probably the slightly more dangerous side, and they proved so again when Pedri plays a perfectly timed pass, and yes, there was potentially foul in build-up, however, I think it was too little, to Oyarzabal, who just gets his foot on it and it rolls into the net. A goal very similar to the one that won them the Euros last year. However, in the second half, there were a few changes made by Roberto Martinez for Portugal at half-time. He brought on Nelson Semedo and Ruben Neves, and that actually changed the game. And from now on, it was only Portugal who were pressing. Bruno Fernandes already thought he had gotten the equalizer in the 48th minute. However, I think there was an offside or a foul in the build-up. But then it is Cristiano Ronaldo who is just right place, right time, and puts it into the net in the 61st minute. And again, I think it was a rather team performance by Cristiano Ronaldo, and I really want to give him credit for that. And from that moment on, Portugal had the upper hand. Yes, Spain were still dangerous, but when they brought players on, I always felt that they took the level of the squad down. I mean, Merino came on for Fabian Ruiz and Isco for Pedri. All right, substitutions, but Isco is no Pedri, although Isco at least had one good chance. But there were probably more chances for Portugal. I felt that Portugal had the upper hand, especially when Rafa Leao then came on. There was a whole other dimension to the left side of their attack, and Spain could only help themselves with foul. The sheer force of what Portugal put on Spain really seemed like this might see them through, maybe even winning in regulation or in overtime. Yes, there was then a call for where Nuno Mendes desperately wanted to have a penalty in the 100th minute, but for all his complaints, he just got a yellow card, and there was a little bust-up between Spanish and Portuguese players. You could see the game got really emotional. Everyone was into it, but the big story at that point had already been that Cristiano Ronaldo was not on the pitch anymore. He had an injury, and Gonzalo Ramos had come on, and I already saw him a little bit like in the Euro 2016 final, coaching left and right. He actually didn't do as much. It was not the ego trip Ronaldo that I'm so used to, but also was really nervous and feeling it, and wanted desperate Portugal to win. Again, I had the feeling that in the first half of extra time, Portugal were largely the better side. The second half, though, it was Spain that was a little bit more dangerous. However, there were never really the big chances. Extra time also gave us some curious changes on the Spanish side. You know, Baena, Porro, Pino and Morata coming on, and you know, Olmo was left on the bench. I mean, even Ferran was left on the bench. So I really felt that this was not the right changes. And especially Morata, I know you want to maybe have a presence up front, but you know, he's not the most mobile player up front as well. In the last few minutes, it was Portugal just passing the ball around, seemingly set for penalties. However, they then had the one header at the end that was put over the bar. The goes to penalties is played in front of the Portuguese fans. Portugal going first, so 1 plus, 1 minus for Portugal. The going first is probably the better one. And I have to say, the first few penalties were all really well taken. Gonzalo Ramos, Vitinha, Bruno Fernandes converting for Portugal, Merino, Baena and Isco for Spain. Then Nuno Mendes steps up, very short run up, and probably the best penalty of them all, just high in the corner, shows how much confidence this guy has. And then you see Morata stepping up, and Morata is never one who oozes confidence. You see always the self-doubt, and from all the players that stepped up, I said this one's gonna miss, and of course he sees his penalty save, and then Ruben Neves converts, and Portugal lift the trophy. When this Nations League started, would I have thought that Portugal will win this one? Potentially not. There were other teams that looked far better, especially on the back of what we saw at the Euros. However, at this Final Four, Portugal were the best team. They were better against Germany. They were better against Spain. And yes, against Germany, they had this improvement in the second half, but you could always feel that substitutions make Portugal stronger. They have an extremely deep squad. Again, if they can conserve this until the next year and qualify, of course, for the World Cup, but I see this as a foregone conclusion, to be honest, then this Portugal team is one to watch. However, it's a much bigger tournament, a much longer tournament as well. I really have to say, during the penalty shootout, and I have to come back to Cristiano Ronaldo, I have not seen this Ronaldo being so nervous and nervously falling. I mean, all the other Portugal players really felt they kind of relaxed about this. Yes, they want to win, but it was more like a fun tournament to win, not the huge pressure that you have maybe on the Euros or World Cup. But you could see Cristiano Ronaldo, he was hiding, he couldn't watch the penalties. And when they won, he was so happy and actually magnanimous, which I have never seen. And did he celebrate his goal in his Sue style? I'm not sure. I didn't really see it. So I was really impressed by that. And in the trophy ceremony, the last time he won this Nations League, the first time ever winners, he was so upset that he didn't win player of the tournament, although he scored 3 goals against Switzerland in the semi-final, that he was arguing on the podium with Ceferin. This time he just accepted the trophy, same way, just shouldered it, brought it to the podium, lifted it, and then even better, and I really have to say this, He then didn't give it to other players. He said, no, let's put this in the front of us and take a team picture. That's what a captain does. And I think this shows a Cristiano Ronaldo that we have not seen that often. And that is a Cristiano Ronaldo that actually can help Portugal. However, I think there are so many better players meanwhile in this Portuguese team. I mean, just they could field 2 world-class midfields. It's really, really, really crazy. A very exciting team to watch for sure. As for Spain, I think it's a minor setback. I mean, Lamine Yamal was not the great force in this final. Maybe too many games already played this season. However, it might be the Spain team definitely has youth on their side as well. The Spain team is also very much for real, and I really like that it's the Basque players who step up. It's Real Sociedad and Athletic Club players that are scoring the goals, and this is so refreshing because Spain so often has been Barcelona and or Real Madrid. To see players from smaller teams step up into this national side is something really, really refreshing. Finally, I also want to talk about the Nations League as a tournament in general. I think UEFA have done the right thing, adding this quarterfinal stage and also these playoff stages. This adds way more interest. And while the group stages may not be the most important of them all, it still feels like it's an important tournament and it gains more and more acceptance. And what we saw in the quarterfinals and now in the Final Four, some of the best games we've seen all season. The Nations League was a way more fun tournament than the Euros were. And that you have the best teams in there actually adds to the allure as well. So I really have been a proponent of the Nations League from the beginning. And I can very well see that maybe in 10, 15 years' time, we will talk about the Nations League as a more important tournament than the Euros, who just measure your performance maybe within a month, whereas the Nations League has it all spaced out, and this Final Four really profits that there are only 2 games. And the teams can go full on out. You have this fun period that you have at the beginning of every big tournament, like we had last year in Germany, where you see a lot of great action and then tactics take over. Here you go straight into a semifinal. Was really well done. It also helped that it being played in Germany. And yes, Munich has been the center of the footballing world this past week. Champions League final, a semifinal, and a final again. Maybe that's a little bit overkill. But I think having it played in Germany also helps. Nice stadiums, full crowds. Now, I want to see if we will see probably some other nations get into this Final Four, because Portugal, Spain and France have been kind of mainstays. Yes, France didn't make it last time around. Will this be now a monopoly of the Western European nations, or will there come a time when maybe Central or Northern European nations swoop in? England potentially, but England have not been in League A in this tournament, so maybe this will come at a later stage. But the Nations League is definitely here to stay. So this ends Nations League coverage for 24-25. I'm already looking forward to the next edition. Though Austria didn't make it to Group A, yeah, so be it. Please let me know how you enjoyed these games here. Drop a line below. Did you like what Portugal did? Is this a Cristiano Ronaldo that can help Portugal next year? Or were the tears and the emotions because he will not be at the World Cup? That's also a question that I wanna raise. Anyway, drop a line below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel if you wanna see more videos like these. There's only 2 more World Cup qualifying days and then we have a summer break. That's rather exciting. And I will talk to you soon about more things in my soccer universe after that. Bye. Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye!